Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, we are really excited to have everybody here for the AI Product Market Fit webinar. Um, Today, where Natalia and Eva are specifically focusing on AI product market fit for B2B SaaS companies. I'll just really quick, you can take a look at the agenda. Eva and Natalia will go through their intros, a couple of case studies, some strategies, and then as I mentioned, please put your questions in the Q&A. We'll do a Q&A at the end. So yeah, let's get started by introing our panelists, and I'll hand it over to Eva.
Thank you, Sam. So excited to be here with you today. I'm Eva Agapaki, founder and CEO of Hatch Labs, which is an AI product management services company that helps deep tech founders grow their startups leveraging AI ML. Before that, I was an AI professor at the University of Florida, where I've been building a research portfolio across industries and leveraging early stage AI-based ideas. Before that, I've also been a product executive, building my own B2B startup out of Ph.D. research, and also head of product at an ad tech startup in New York City. My background is in AI ML, with a PhD from MIT and the University of Cambridge in computer vision. And I'm excited to pass it on to Natalia.
What an esteemed panelist. So thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Natalia. I've built AI products at scale, both consumer and enterprise. Today, I will talk about Retorio. It's an enterprise AI startup backed by Storm Ventures that I've been working with. And yeah, excited to get started. So the first thing I'd like to cover is, next slide, Sam. So how do you know, so what is product market fit for B2B startups? And then how this is different for AI products. So from our founder, Tehi, who's the founder of Storm Ventures, has an excellent book on this topic, which is called Survival to Thrival, Building the Enterprise Startup. And I'm borrowing here from him. There are three specific things that are signs of enterprise product market fit. And those three things are: one, paying customers. So customers take a chance on you early on. Two, real usage. Paying customers, it's not enough, right? What matters in the end is that the customers use the product in situations where it's the business really depends on it. And thirdly, recommendations and virality. So customers start recommending the product to their peers, and inbound customer interest accelerates. Again, highly recommend Survival to Thrival for more on the B2B journey in general. But how is AI product market fit different? Next slide, Sam, please. So AI products are automated systems that collect and learn from data to make user-facing decisions. Machine learning uses statistical techniques to give computer systems the ability to learn by being trained on data. After training, the system can make predictions based on the data it hasn't seen before. Fundamentally, AI is different because machine learning shifts engineering from a very deterministic process to a probabilistic one. So instead of writing code with hard-coded algorithms and rules that is done in a very predictable manner, ML engineers collect lots of examples of input and output pairs and use them as training data for their models. So here you see the very traditional development life cycle, and then you see the AI life cycle. And now we're in the era of generative AI, where the AI life cycle is evolving even further. So you may not need to train your own models. It might be enough to fine-tune them, do prompt engineering, but that is a subject for another webinar. I'll emphasize three pieces that are really, really important when you think about AI product market fit, which is data is key. So every AI product starts with data. You have to collect it intentionally. Two, you have to update data as products change. Second, evaluation is really key. So model evaluation is done through metrics, and metrics encode what you think is a good experience and a good product. This is really what defines what you care about and something that you can't ignore. If part of the experience is not measured, it may be sacrificed for something else that is. And then thirdly, user experience for AI products is an evolving area, and this is very exciting. It holds tremendous opportunity, and nobody knows where it's going to go next. But the interface can translate results from a model to outputs that people can actually interact with. And so what you see in AI products is this feedback loop where we collect data from interactions that are inputs, and we can actually use those to keep improving the experience of AI products. So that's a little bit of theory just to get us grounded and anchored around AI product market fit. Let's talk about a real world case study. So I mentioned Retorio, it's a Storm portfolio company. Next slide. Retorio is a German company that provides AI coaching to identify and drive winning behavior. They started off as a research project at the Technical University of Munich. The two founders were in the same department, which is how they got to know each other. And here you see their vision. Well, not quite. Just quickly, their vision is to build an individual coach containing the best knowledge and apply this coach in the enterprise scenarios. Okay, next slide. So how did this all get started? Again, after years of Ph.D. research in behavioral psychology, the team decided to build a startup. So they founded the company in October 2018. The first thing they did is they built prototypes, and they iterated very quickly by building and testing many rough prototypes that help people make better decisions. To feedback, they got their first feedback by tapping into the student community at the university. So here they were fortunate to already be embedded in a community, and they really used that community to get feedback. They received positive feedback on their product, and they realized that this is a problem worth going after. They got some government funding, and they were in business. The first customer was from the ecosystem. So the university has a little bit of an incubator, and companies come for the talent and for the latest cutting edge technologies. They get access to startups, and entrepreneurs get access to companies. And so this worked really well. Through this program, they were able to get their first customer. Next slide. So what were the early signs of product market fit? Well, one was AI results that made sense. So they had a prototype, a Unity prototype of a coach that would mirror human interactions and basically would interact with the person. So the product started to give results that made sense. It actually, that was one way. Two, they tested the product in the wild, and they saw that people agreed that these were good results. And then third, they were able to actually see changes in people's behavior because of AI coaching. People got better as a result of these interactions. And they started to get a lot of positive feedback and excitement from customers. Again, they started out with a Unity bot that would mirror your behavior, and this is really where they got the wow effect that resonated. Today, they use virtual avatars. In essence, it's the same concept. So let's take a look at the product today just to make it a little bit more real. Next slide. So this is a fictional company called Buttercup Corporation. It's a fictional telecommunications company with offices around the globe. This is their customer. And the user of the product is Jane, who is an entry-level call center associate. So while the company and our main character, Jane, are fictional, everything else is real. This is really how the product works. And this was a real deployment of the product with a customer. So it's a true story of how Retorio upended customer service onboarding at a very large company. So let's see how this works. So meet Jane, who recently completed her university studies, and she joined Buttercup as an entry-level call center associate. This is her first job in the real world. Next slide. So to onboard Jane, Buttercup provides 8-week-long training with lots of reading and lectures, but no practical experience in dealing with customers. So the training concludes with a final assessment that determines whether new hires are ready to become official employees. So Jane's assessment at the very end, after 8 hours of theory, included a real customer call where she had to interact with a customer without any practice. Unfortunately, there was quite a buildup. Jane got very nervous, the customer got frustrated, and the call ended abruptly. So it was a very bad experience for the customer, it was a bad experience for Jane, and it was a bad experience for the company, right? Jane did not pass the assessment and she had to repeat the training. Next slide. So the pain point here is that the company has to either retrain or replace Jane. This is expensive. Furthermore, there are delays in customer service because they're not able to onboard employees fast enough. And that means lost revenue for the company. Jane, as I mentioned, was very nervous. And even though she had learned all the theory in the moment, everything was forgotten and she was not able to handle the call well. So after failing the assessment, she was very distraught. She started to look for other jobs. She felt humiliated that she had to repeat the training, but she did come back. So how Retorio could help, or it did help when it was deployed with this company. So this is how Retorio works. Retorio software offers simulations of typical job situations, and this allows reps to practice real customer conversations and train interpersonal skills. So employees learn how customers perceive them, how to deliver messages effectively, how to explain the most important product details, and how to provide the right information in a way that makes sense. Then they get to practice, and again, each time they practice, they get personalized feedback. So these are the 3 simple steps for using Retorio. 1, Jane would choose a scenario. So it might be inbound call management, it might be resolving customer issues, it might be around consent management. 2, she records the interaction with an imaginary AI customer. And then finally, she receives personalized feedback with the full analysis so that she knows where she needs to improve. Next slide. So Jane can practice interacting with real customers, and this is extremely powerful. She gets immediate feedback. So we go from theory to putting things in practice from day 1. The feedback is personalized, it's meaningful for each interaction, it offers social proof, and it gives her a framework that's tried and tested for handling difficult conversations. So after her completing her training with Retorio, Jane was far more confident. And here's what she said. I can actually know how to speak better to customers and make them feel better about the conversation. We get rid of the panic that we usually get on the first calls. Customer service, this particular scenario, is just one of the verticals. In addition to training customer service representatives, Retorio also offers sales training and after sales training and leadership training as well. So I hope that explains the product. And here is a quick slide on the value. Simply put, Retorio increases onboarding efficiency, So it cuts down the time for onboarding, it increases the number of calls, and overall, this company had 800,000 euro in saving annually. So again, that's how the product works, the paid point, the experience. I hope that's a very it makes it easy to understand. Let's talk about the technology. There's a lot of complicated AI underneath the hood. So using automated video interviews, Retorio analyzes behavioral cues, right? So it analyzes the facial expression, body language, voice, and this is how they build a behavioral personality profile. They transcribe spoken words and analyze language. They have proprietary neural networks and NLP models for the analysis. So they combine different machine learning methods like ensemble models. They offer security, transparency, etc. So there is a suite of ML technologies, including generative AI, which is the latest thing. They use that for feedback. That's under the hood. So state-of-the-art system out in the wild. Next slide. Of course, building AI products is incredibly challenging, and one of the biggest challenges is always data. I'll offer up some strategies on how to get data when you're starting out as an AI startup. But in enterprise, this is in particular a really big problem because data is often locked away in enterprise, so models that really need it can't access it. And then to keep improving the product, you always need to find more data, more external data. Two, building a user experience, the right user experience for an AI product is very challenging, and Retorio has had to grapple with this quite a bit. What are the ways that you should display data in a way that people can digest it and that you can use as feedback to make the product better? How do you build a GUI for a model that does something useful, right? So how do you go from all of that amazing technology that's under the hood to something that people love and that's a good experience that provides value? So that is a huge challenge, and one I'm very excited about, and where we have a lot of innovation in AI. The third challenge, which is pretty typical for enterprise startups, is teasing out the commonalities, right? So how do you find things that are universal across a wide range of customers who are in different industries and different verticals? And so this is always a very challenging thing to do in an enterprise startup. Having worked at Salesforce, I saw this firsthand over and over again. So with that, I am concluding the Retorio case study, and I'm handing it over to Eva for Neural Magic. Eva, take it away.
Thank you, Natalia. What an exciting story, and especially coming out of research, which is also the background of the story that I'm going to provide. So next slide. Today I'm excited to share Neural Magic's story, which is an MIT spin-off founded by Nir Shavit, an MIT professor, and Alexander Matveev, a former postdoc researcher at MIT. So they started Neural in order to answer a fundamental question, like why should we run ML and LLM deployments on GPUs? So their mission while pursuing research at MIT was to have a software-delivered AI solution to address their own frustration with the constraints of GPUs and existing hardware. So next slide. Why is this important? So by 2024, so this year, 75% of enterprise organizations will shift from experimenting and from piloting in AI to or actually operationalizing these models. So this reflects a boom in enterprise-level AI software. Next slide. At the same time, when we have all that boom and scale in terms of inference for enterprise, the cost is really a barrier because it's 80% of ML costs come from inference. So I'm going to walk you through a use case. We can go to the next slide, please, with one of Neural Magic's customers in the retail industry. So Smart Shopper is a rapidly expanding fictional retailer with over 2,000 locations across the country. With the store expansion, Smart Shopper faced challenges in terms of understanding the number of customers in their stores, and particularly during peak hours and promotional events. So Jack, their lead data scientist with a strong background in ML, he has responsibilities to develop and fine-tune these models in order to analyze video data from store cameras. So he would be able to identify patterns and insights that can improve the store layouts and overall the customer experience. So next slide, let's see what Jack's problems actually are. Although he has such a strong expertise in ML, he has been increasingly frustrated with the challenges of deploying ML models in production. And the reason is that cloud-based AI model inference has high latency and cost. So this makes it unsuitable for this application, which is real-time, for instance, tracking customers in the retail store locations. And Jack is really looking to deploy ML models directly on CCTV cameras. So, however, he is faced with two significant bottlenecks. CCTV cameras, first of all, don't have access to GPUs, and this makes AI deployment hard. He would need to run his ML models on CPUs, but the problem there is that he would have very high latency. So how is he going to run his ML models on device without sacrificing performance? So let's see. This is not only Jack's pain point, and in this case, the retail chain store that I mentioned, but it's also a significant problem in the industry overall, since 75% of enterprise model inference is actually running on CPUs. So Jack cannot actually run inference at multiple different locations due to GPU unavailability. So his process would be the following. So it's a 6-step process that I will now walk you through. In order to deploy his models on CCTV cameras, first of all, he would need to perform what we call as model optimization, where he would decrease the model size using a lot of tools like TensorFlow Lite and run those conversion and optimization tools so that he will be able to deploy these models on CCTV cameras. Step number 2, he would need to select the hardware. But given the fact that there's so many locations in stores, the configurations of the hardware would be very different on different models. Step number 3, then he needs to apply a lot of edge-specific improvements, such as caching frequently used data or results to minimize computation. Step number 4, he would then need to test the models on the selected hardware to ensure that they perform well in terms of speed and accuracy. Step number 5, he would need to monitor and evaluate the models and also collect metrics on each camera's operations. And lastly, he would need to scale and manage the deployment across more than 2,000 cameras in all of the retail stores, which may involve containerization tools, a centralized system to monitor and manage that fleet of edge devices. So he is really faced with such a big problem. And you can see here that his challenge in terms of running multiple models in different hardware configuration systems is a time-consuming and expensive process. And this makes it really hard to scale and manage ML inference. So how he would actually do that? This is where, and we can go to the next slide, he would use Neural Magic's help. So after using Neural Magic software, instead of worrying about all these 6-step process that I mentioned, he only needs to worry about model testing, monitoring and evaluation, and lastly, scalability and management of the fleet of edge devices through Neural Magic software. So in a nutshell, the value gain with Neural Magic's product is that instead of worrying about the deployment in each scenario where every individual model needs to run, Jack can take that software and bring it to the center and standardize the whole process with optimization and running it on that middleman software that can then be deployed in all stores and CCTV camera configurations. Overall, Neural Magic gives the opportunity to deploy software across the commodity infrastructure that customers are already familiar with, not only on the edge, like the use case that we saw here, but also in public or private cloud and managing containers as well in a private data center, for instance. We can go to the next slide. So now Jack can run inference on CPUs. So he's running Neural Magic software in all retail stores. It becomes a lot easier to ensure that AI inference is taking place in all locations. So it's an operationally simple process. To summarize, in short, Neural Magic's value brought to the customer is, first of all, GPU class performance delivered through software, flexible deployment, and reduced operational complexity. So now let's see the outcomes of this case study. So Emily, who was Jack's manager, was impressed with the deployment of ML models. And in fact, it was much cheaper compared to the cloud provider that they used to have. And Smart Shopper was able to purchase even more cameras to increase coverage and improve their customer experience in the stores. Now, let's see the two, in order to summarize, the two important benefits, and in terms of Neural Magic's value here, were, first of all, that Jack achieved 7 times faster deployment by delivering GPU capabilities on standard CPUs. And secondly, Smart Shopper was able to double the number of cameras available in their store locations. So let's see how was this made possible. So behind the scenes, the way that Neural builds their products is based on how the human brain works. So inspired by neurons, which are sparse structures, they took the deep neural networks and made them sparse so that they're not densely connected. That was the challenge that they solved to unlock the opportunity to run ML models on CPUs. So CPUs exploit the sparsity better than GPUs. And now let's see the strategies that Neural Magic used in order to achieve product market fit. So the first strategy was to use actually open source software. So let's see how they did it. Components of Neural Magic software are open source. So what we mean with that is that they've been able to engage with a broad set of users in their Slack communities and GitHub channels. So these are about 2,000 members that they not only validated their tool usage, but also incorporated that feedback into the DeepSparse Enterprise product, which is the enterprise subscription offering. So data scientists and ML engineers, in other words, apply optimization techniques to reduce the complexity for the open source models with a goal to deploy those models on commodity infrastructure. And these open source models, you can think of them as like libraries, repositories of best performing models, which they can then deploy in production with the enterprise offering. So DeepSparse is their software runtime for deploying these models on commodity infrastructure, so CPUs, x86, and ARM-based hardware. And lastly, another strategy that they implemented is to run proof of concept pilots with enterprises really early on their journey. So they wanted to enhance their value prop, which was based on efficiency and speed. And the way that customers use Neural's products is that they didn't use them for training, so they understood that their main use cases would be fine-tuning on specific data sets or inference. And they've also been engaged in partnerships with enterprise software providers such as Uhura for LLM models and StriveWorks for MLOps operations on national security. With that, I want to close with Neural Magic's journey so far. As I mentioned earlier, they started as an MIT spin-off in 2017 by Nir and Alexander, and within a year, they raised their pre-seed round. They are a Series A startup and have raised $50 million from renowned investors. What took them there was addressing a market problem where enterprise organizations need to operationalize their AI models. So with that, back to you, Natalia, for the strategies.
Thank you, Eva. What a fantastic story. And I'd love to encourage folks on the webinar to please feel free to start asking us questions. We're going to cover some of the strategies for AI product market fit. And then we are going to go into the questions. So I'd love to see some interaction here. I'd love to hear what you're concerned about, when you want to hear about, what you're looking for from the webinar. So so all this said, AI applications are so diverse. It's not just about AI coaching or recommendations or LLM deployments on CPUs. AI can be so many different things, as many things as you can have software products, right? AI can make existing products better, or it can enable new products that enrich the human experience. So very exciting. There is a crazy hype cycle around AI right now, and people tend to get enamored with the latest shiny technology. There's actually a name for this. You guys might know this already, I'm sure. It's called the shiny object syndrome, but there's a tendency to focus on something new and current. And sometimes it can be at the expense of whatever the other business priorities are. So it's just something to be aware of. The shiny object syndrome takes the form of chasing the latest strategy, tactic, advice, making the rounds within the industry. So don't fall victim to this shiny object syndrome. Focus on what is useful in a product and not just the cool factor. AI products should solve real problems for users in meaningful ways. And when interacting with customers, just here are a few tips. Don't assume that customers know how AI works. Sometimes people who are extremely opinionated are actually misinformed. So you need a patience to bring them along on this journey with you. Set the context. Don't rush the execution. One of the worst mistakes I see with companies that come in is like people rush to execution, and that's expensive. You have to build things and then you have to maintain them, and you may not even know if it's the right thing to focus on. So take a step back and do your homework on the customers, the idea. Again, highly recommend Tehi's book on this. So here's one thing that, again, that's very different about AI. You have to foster an experimental culture, and customers have to understand that building products takes time and it's iterative. So the first version of your AI product undoubtedly will be awful. So yeah, but make sure you take care of that. 3, align on expectations. Make sure you document the conversations. So yes, Eva will take it away for the next one. And I'm excited to see we have a question, but we will give us a few more minutes. We'll go through these and then we'll tackle it.
Thank you, Natalia. So another important factor when it comes to achieving product market fit, especially for AI, but not only in general, emerging technology, is to understand, as Natalia mentioned, your customers. And here we see with this very well-known crossing the chasm graphic, that actually adoption by innovators, like those leaders in the space, that they're super excited about the new wave of the new technology, they really want to be ahead of the curve, doesn't really mean that it's achieving the product is actually having product market fit for the majority of your customers. And actually, speaking from my own experience, when I started a spin-off out of my PhD research, I experienced early on this wow effect from a couple of innovators who were actually paying customers. However, this was not a trend at scale, since the majority of those customers were reluctant to buy and the market was not ready for such a product. So it's really important to distinguish between that adoption by innovators versus product market fit for the majority of the customers. And this is not applicable only to AI, but also in general about emerging technologies that creates disruption in the market. Next slide, please. The majority of the customers, they are really characterized by being reluctant to change their habits. So the minimum change that you have for those customers that's towards their benefit, they need to feel urgent pain before buying the product, and they want to see easy products to work with, like products that work out of the box, they have easy support, they will always take the safest decision, they won't be the risky bets out of their pockets. So it's all about crossing that chasm between innovators and the majority of the customers in order to achieve that product market fit, especially for B2B products. And back to you, Natalia.
Okay, I see some excellent questions coming in, and I'm going to start to see if I can actually work them into some of the things that I talk about next. So one of the questions is, AI products are often free. How do you get sticky retention to compete? AI products are free in consumer, but not so much in enterprise. But I think before you even get there, let me cover a few things and then answer your question as part of some of what I'm talking about next. If you're building an AI startup, the first thing you have to figure out is how you're going to get your data. So you can't get to sticky retention, you can't get to anything unless you have data. You have to start with that first and foremost. And I'll have a slide that covers a few strategies on how to get data. But in the very beginning, you don't even have data. You can't have a product, right? So you need access to a customer base. Think about what is proprietary that you can do that nobody else can if you're when you get on the journey of building AI products. Again, set the expectations. You're going to have to experiment and build with practical considerations in mind. Next slide. One tool I want to recommend is something called the machine learning canvas that helps with the early ideation of AI products. Very helpful to make sure you think about all the pieces. Next slide. So let me cover, again, you can't get to stickiness, you can't get to anything unless you have data. And this is you have the cold start problem in the very beginning. You don't have users, you don't have data. So how do you get data? So here are a few ways that you can do that. You can go completely brute force, and you can create, collect, and label your own data. Two, you can spend some money and crowdsource to get data. Three, you could get publicly available data, and take this with a grain of salt, because it may not be the exact data that you need. You could license data from third party, and you can actually use data from your users. So this is actually ties into that stickiness issue. You want to design a product that's sticky, meaning that people want to interact, and you use all of those interactions as a way to get data from users, and you create this loop, this virtual cycle, where you get more users, you get more data, you get an improved model, and it leads to a better product experience. So think of it as a cycle in order to get to sticky retention. And you need to get the cycle started by solving that cold start problem with data that you need to get from one of these 5 ways. There's a link in there with 10 strategies for doing this. So data is everything. You can't get anywhere without it. Next thing, and this is what I'm gonna complete complete our presentation part with is, at my job at Storm, I see a lot of companies that come and pitch, right? And the biggest problem I see, hands down, is that early stage companies struggle to explain what they do. And especially if you're building AI products or something very, very technical, it is so important to tell a good story about what it is that you're doing. So having and telling a compelling story is one of the most important things you can do, regardless of what kind of startup you're working on, but especially for AI startups where things are so technical and complicated. And I hope you can kind of reference back to the two stories that we presented. We used a technique called a product vignette. So it's a simple story that describes how your product can help customers. We explained what Retorio does through a product vignette, and Eva did the same thing with Neural Magic. So I highly recommend you pay, it is so important to pay attention to that for yourself, for your customers, for anyone you work with as you embark on this journey. So with that completes our presentation. I'm eager to start on the questions piece. Let's see.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I see we have some questions. If you, Natalia, want to get started, or if anybody else, like, please take the time now.
There was a question I wanted to address around AI data security. We're trying to sell to IT admins and CIOs, and everyone's skeptical, outright convinced it's a shiny object. So I feel this question. Would you suggest we place an emphasis on AI, the shiny object, or just focus on the value? I think it's really important to focus on the value because that's a long-term thing. And I wanted to share that Storm has a excellent portfolio company called Opaque. The website is opaque.co. And this company is all about confidential data for trusted AI. So this is everything you need to know about enterprise data for AI projects, basically everything security. And we have actually a confidential computing summit in June 5th in San Francisco. So I wanted to recommend that as a resource to help with this question. Eva, you want to take a question?
Regarding the question, do you see a marked difference in product dev for B2B AI products we as consumer, or are the steps and rules essentially the same in your view? So we touched a little bit about on that in the points of the presentation where we presented the AI product lifecycle. But essentially, like, the B2B challenges are definitely a lot more when it comes to adoption. Like, I gave one example about crossing the chasm with the customers in enterprise being a lot more reluctant than the B2C customers. And there are fundamental differences when it comes to like those early stage pilots, which in many cases it could be even be done for free. Like, you would see strategies such as what I shared with Neural Magic's use case for open sourcing the models, especially in B2B environments. That's not that's a different use case when it comes to consumer products, and especially like understanding the customers and the consumer database. It's a totally different journey when it comes to like customer acquisition and really being able to narrow down the path for your first paying customers. But the other part is unlocking growth, which is you might even have, like, for B2B products, 1-2 paying customers, but that does not mean that this is a general trend in the market. There are certain uncertainties after that, which and challenges when it comes to generalizing and understanding the market trends, which are very important as well. And Natalia, you shared the book from Storm Ventures, which we can reference for that, Unlocking Growth. And it's an excellent book. I would recommend it as well.
Yeah, I'll add a few things to this one. This is a great question. And again, the question is, do you see a marked difference in product dev for B2B AI products versus consumer? There's a big difference in general in enterprise versus consumer. It's a totally different dynamic. And really success in enterprise companies is really a lot about being able to sell the product to enterprises. And it requires, so this is the next piece after you get to product market fit, you have to figure out your go-to-market fit. And again, Tehi's book, covers all of the strategies around how you do this. So growth is very different for enterprise versus consumer startups. With consumer startups, you can do product-led growth. With enterprise, you can do product-led growth, you can do top-down sales, you can do something in the middle, but it's a very, very different beast. The other reason why B2B AI products are very different is because, as much as we are in this AI hype cycle, the reality is that most enterprise companies are way behind. They're just like, you need to have good infrastructure to support the AI, to have that sticky retention that the other thank you for that question, the other question asked about. And so again, the issue was data is locked away in silos, and that's a really big problem. Enterprises, again, this is tying well with the other question, are really concerned about security and privacy, and the development cycles are much slower. You're not able to get feedback as quickly. So there's, again, a completely different beast. Enterprise versus, I could talk about this for another webinar, but I'm going to stop there.
And putting the link of the book in the chat as well, The Survival to Thrive.
Yes, so Boy and I, we will share the recording, we'll share the slides. It looks like Eva already sent out a link for data strategies as well as the canvas as well. Excellent. We have 10 more minutes left. It looks like we have no more questions. Anyone have questions? Let me give a few more minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just go ahead. I'm going to pull up, while we're waiting for some questions, just sort of our final slide with Eva and Natalia's info. If you guys have any follow-up questions, maybe they want to ask
yeah, if anything
on camera.
If you think of something afterwards.
Oh, here we got some coming in. Question about the difference between investing in vertical AI and horizontal.
Very broad question. I think the challenge with investing in vertical AI is that it turns out that actually verticals have very special dynamics of their own. And it really takes somebody who knows the dynamics of the vertical. And a lot of times it's very hard to invest in verticals because you're not the expert. And I'll give you an example. There was a company called Convoy, right? So they were basically a company that managed shipping, logistics. I don't think it was shipping. I think it was more like transport, cargo, and they were going to go into that industry. But it turns out that there's like some really weird supply and demand things that are sensitive to external market conditions. Anyway, the long story short is that particular company folded. And that's an example of a vertical tech company. So same thing applies with vertical AI companies. There's very specific nuances to each vertical that you have to kind of be aware of, as opposed to the horizontals where, it may be a little bit more obvious. Where did Retorio get the data to train their models? I would have to follow up with the CEO. I believe, and again, I'd have to check that this is actually the case. I believe they did a lot of it manually to begin with. But again, I think only the CEO can tell me. I meant to ask him this question actually, and then I forgot. But now they have a whole system going where they have they can get data from the current product. Okay.
Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead. I'll throw up your Natalia and Eva's info again really quick. Okay, cool. We have another one coming in. If a vertical AI company has gathered the data and deep expertise from their happy pre-chasm customers, are there any other factors impacting the investment?
Yeah, there's lots of factors impacting the investment. I can give you some of the things that we think about in general for all of the companies that we look at. We obviously look at the founders. It's good if the founders have a history of success. Or if they're an awesome team. We look at ARR first and foremost, and these are just general things that we look at. We look at the economics. So what is the path to 50 million ARR? What's the path to 100 million ARR? We look at the unit economics of the company, so gross margin, and we look at the burn multiple. So there's a whole set of a rubric of things that we consider when we invest in companies. I think it's very interesting to think about this for AI because we're definitely on an AI wave. And so the question is what that's going to look like in 5 years, in 10 years. I think there's going to be, just my personal opinion, not storms or anything, but I think we're going to see an explosion. We're already seeing an explosion of applications, but we're going to see even more of an explosion of new products top of the stack as inference becomes cheaper and faster, because that's one of the challenges right now. It's just extremely expensive to do inference.
Mm-hmm. I see the same trend in terms of hardware investments becoming more and more prevalent, but also in terms of factors, there are so many factors, like even on a vertical side, like it could be proprietary data sets, it could be a particular problem, a challenge in an industry that is really driving the innovation rather than a technology-driven company itself, which really crosses the chasm of wider adoption and wider patterns of really seeing the need for these. Like with the examples that we shared, both Retorio and Neural Magic had such a bold case where there were manual processes, a lot of tedious processes that had to be automated, and there was no other way. It was clearly a market pain point that they were solving. So that's what I'm seeing as like a factor.
And then,
yeah,
do you want to take this one, Natalia?
I'm talking about LLMs specifically.
So the question was just, when you say that inference is computationally expensive part, is the computationally expensive part, are you thinking primarily about LLMs or also the wider world of AI ML models?
I was thinking specifically about the LLMs because it's such a hot topic, and you guys might have seen, like, there's a company called Grok, which is recently designed a chip to run AI models really, really, really fast and much cheaper. And this is specifically for LLMs. And they're calling it LPUs. And so that's why I was thinking about it. It was like the latest news. I'm specifically talking about that part because I think it's really dovetails on all of the latest trends. And I think the other thing I want to just point out is that there's tremendous amount of excitement in enterprise market around the adoption of AI. There's always been AI, as this question alludes to. There's AI that's more the traditional AI, but now with all the large language model stuff, it's just even more powerful, and it's just created so much demand in the enterprise world. So there's a lot of interest, and so I would encourage everyone. I hope, you know, if you're at this webinar, like, consider ideas, consider the fact that this is an incredible opportunity right now to really make an impact in the enterprise world with the latest AI stuff. I'm pretty excited about it. Awesome. Well, thank you. It looks like we are. Thank you everyone for. I know this was a long webinar, and it's not easy to just watch something for an hour online. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being here and listening to us. And I'm super excited about all this stuff. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you, Eva, for an amazing job. Thank you, Sam, for all your incredible support.
Thank you guys both
Great.
so much for being here and sharing your knowledge. I just went ahead and threw up their data for everybody. Come take a screenshot if you have any other questions. And just we will be sharing this recording. I'll send out a follow-up email, as well as the presentation deck. So all the links you saw throughout, we will send that out as well. So yeah, thank you again so much for joining us. And thank you, Eva and Natalia. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great
Bye, everyone.
day.